And you got to give Zach Wilson credit for this. He managed the game. He didn't throw an interception. He wasn't terrific. But you know what? He's doing what the Jets need him to do. And basically that's not be god-awful and just manage the game. So it was an awesome weekend for half the New York football fans, not counting Buffalo. Well, I guess you could say, 2/3. Well, the New York Giants were the half that didn't have a great weekend because the New York Jets broke a streak that was like kind of mind-blowing to think about. I know obviously the Eagles don't play in the same conference, but the fact that the New York Jets in their history have not won a single game versus the Philadelphia Eagles is mind-blowing. And they finally put an end to that streak. And obviously Jets fans would have liked to end the streak versus the New England Patriots that they have, I believe since 2015, was the last time the New York Jets beat the New England Patriots. Well, this time around, they kinda, obviously with the Patriots being so bad this year, you would have liked to have seen them get both the wins, but it makes up for it just a bit that they were able to get this huge victory versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And this question with the Eagles all year has kind of been like, yeah, they're undefeated, right? 5-0. And with San Francisco losing to Cleveland on Sunday, Philly had a real shot to be the lone undefeated team in the National Football League. And they had a great chance. And if Jalen Hurts doesn't throw some of the laziest, probably the most laziest pass that a great quarterback has thrown this year, the Philadelphia Eagles are 6-0. I mean, the fact that I couldn't believe that was even, you knew they were going to pass it just with Nick Sirianni and his confidence. You knew that Philly was going to pass on that play. I don't think there was any doubt about it because one pass, first down, game over. And what happens? That interception. Just an unbelievable play by the defense. And you got to give Zach Wilson credit for this. He managed the game. He didn't throw an interception. He wasn't terrific. But you know what? He's doing what the Jets need him to do. And basically that's not be god-awful and just manage the game. Keep the defense, interested in playing defense, right? Because there was that one time in the Kansas City Chiefs game where the defense let off 17 points from Kansas City, and you could tell they just kind of needed something from the offense in order to keep that same effort going. And lately, the Jets have been playing better offensively. They showed that in Kansas City. They showed that versus Denver, although Denver's defense is pretty dreadful. So it was going to be interesting to see how they played against Philly, and the offense was giving them enough chances to win the game. And that's what this defense did this game that they really didn't do at all last year and struggled at times this year is force turnovers. 3 interceptions by Jalen Hurts, one of the best quarterbacks in the league and was the MVP last year, is a huge deal. Huge deal. And I don't care what anybody says about the New York Jets. I said this after week 1. I still expect the Jets to compete in this division and secure a playoff spot, even with Zach Wilson at quarterback. And I'm so happy that Zach Wilson has been able to kind of pull, because that was a rough week 3 versus the New England Patriots. Just that after that game, the week that he had to endure with the criticism, and it was a bad loss and he deserved every bit of it, but he grew up. He grew up and he's playing much better now, and he just needs to be serviceable, right? I don't really buy at all, really, the Aaron Rodgers coming back from the Achilles. I believe it when I see it. I think most Jets fans are taking it that way. But the whole Kirk Cousins trade rumors that were basically put to bed a few days ago when Kirk Cousins said he had a no trade clause and he wasn't going to waive it. And, he's a family man, likes it in Minnesota, even though Minnesota's really disappointing this year, especially after their 13-4 season last year. I think most people thought that was a little bit fraudulent, but this was a season where Kirk Cousins being on the market to the Jets was some people as possibility, but it was clear that the Jets are still sticking with Zach Wilson, even though Cousins said, Cousins wasn't going to go to the Jets because they were not going to keep him long term. This is Aaron Rodgers' team next year, and I think most people expect Aaron Rodgers to be back. You're not saying no to Aaron Rodgers if Kirk Cousins, Kirk Cousins doesn't blow Aaron Rodgers that possibility out of the way. You still want to see that. So Zach Wilson was always going to be the quarterback, and if he was so bad, then they would have to get somebody, some veteran, right? We saw with Trevor Siemian, they brought him in. He's somebody that isn't a starting quarterback. They just pulled him off the streets. So they would have found some alternative, I think. But Zach Wilson is showing that, okay, maybe you don't need that. Maybe you can with me. Maybe I am showing growth. I still would like to see him, and Dan Orlovsky pointed this out after the Patriots loss. He, basically called out the Jets organization for babying him so much and not letting him do things with his talent level. Basically being afraid to make mistakes, and they were kind of putting him in that position. You saw in Kansas City, they kind of let go of that a little bit. He went downfield more. Yeah, he missed Garrett Wilson sometimes. There were times where he didn't throw a great pass, but it was progress. You saw the confidence level go up, and that is something you're seeing more recently with how the Jets are handling Zach Wilson, but you still want to see it more. I understand the running game has been really good. Breece Hall's a stud. Dalvin Cook's been very disappointing. All right, but the whole thing with Breece Hall, I mean, it's out there. This guy's a beast, and the fact that this guy's coming off a torn ACL from last year, and let's face it, after his injury was a huge, probably the reason the Jets didn't make the playoffs last year after they started out 7-4. Right? I mean, this is this year where you didn't really know what you were going to get from him. Was this just like a one-year wonder thing? No, he's coming out and he's showing you he's that good. And yet sometimes you wish you would kind of chill with the complaining about not getting enough touches, but you can also see from his perspective, yeah, he's really good. Keep feeding him the football, right? So these are things that with the Jets at 3-3, I think a lot of people were concerned that even with Aaron Rodgers playing, were the Jets going to be 3-3 after 6 games? And the fact that Aaron Rodgers isn't playing after 4 snaps and they're 3-3, and one of those losses was a disastrous loss to the New England Patriots, you can argue that the Jets should be 4-2. So I think there's no question that this team is going to be competing for the playoffs. Their defense is that good. We've known this defense is that good, and now they've proven that they can really take the ball away from an elite quarterback. Now you could say maybe Jalen Hurts just had a bad game, but Patrick Mahomes didn't play that great either against when they faced Kansas City. And you could argue in the Kansas City game that they got hosed on a couple calls, right? I mean, the Jets historically, especially recently, haven't really earned the respect from the NFL officials. So they're not going to be getting the benefit of the doubt with so many calls. But it's proof that this defense and this team is getting better. And it's really promising and awesome to see the team kind of accept Zach Wilson more, because Zach Wilson's playing better. I think Zach Wilson's taking accountability. He's not saying any tone deaf comments like he did last year. He's coming in there. He's working hard. He really wants this quarterback position to not be terrible for the New York Jets the rest of this year. Obviously, he probably never wanted that, obviously, but he's coming in there and he's making a statement. It's like, hey, I can belong in this league. And yeah, he hasn't been amazing, right? But he's given you cause to pause. Like, okay, maybe this guy can play in the league, right? Because few weeks ago, you were like, this guy is one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. And the fact that he's a number 2 draft pick, he's like not even an NFL player. Now he's shown recently he can be that guy. They're winning around him. They're awesome in special teams, right? This team has a lot of talent to where they can still make a run to the postseason. And I've been saying that all year, basically, even after the Patriots loss, how bad that was. Going into the Broncos after the Kansas City Chiefs game, I was like, this team is too talented to just tank and give up on the year. It's just really that simple. So the Philadelphia Eagles, who I'm still not sold as the best team in the NFC, I still like San Francisco more. Detroit's emerging. Dallas has fallen ever since the Trayvon Diggs injury, even though they had a nice win against the Chargers last night. We're recording this on Tuesday, October 17th. And this is an Eagles team that I thought that the Jets really had a shot at beating, because I saw how they played against Kansas City. No one had the Jets winning that game because that was coming off the Patriots game of how devastating that was to their spread. But this was a situation where, the Eagles haven't blown anybody away this year, even though they're undefeated. Like, we're kind of just taking this. Last year, they were great. We know they're good, but they really haven't been that dominant team that they were last year. And I think Sunday they came in a little too cool, a little too full of themselves. They knew a lot of Eagles fans were going to be at MetLife, and there were. And because that's a great fan base, and there's a lot of people in South Jersey that root for the Philadelphia Eagles. And where's MetLife Stadium in Jersey? So they're all there. And, they probably were like, it's the Jets. Like, they're really that good. They meet the Broncos. Does that really count? I mean, the Broncos are pretty terrible. And you know what? That's a bad loss for the Eagles. Just a terrible loss. I think any Eagle fan will tell you that. The way that game concluded is just unacceptable. I mean, just the way that they didn't even score in the second half of the game. And that just shows how shut down this Jets defense can be. However, I think the concern is for the Jets going forward is the first half and the opening drives, other teams getting points on the board and the offense kind of getting a slow start in the first half of games. Now, obviously, the second half of games mean more. So it's a nitpick in ways. But sometimes, like, you look at the Kansas City game, they're down 17-0 in the first 7 minutes. Like, that's the reason they lost. All right. You could say Zach Wilson's fumble. You could say they didn't score in the last few drives, whatever. Hosed by the refs. They lost because they gave up 17 points in the first 7 minutes of the game at home. And that's unacceptable. And I think the Jets defense knows that. Now, before I also want to say that to talk about Robert Saleh, I think Robert Saleh, it was a signature win for him. I'm rooting for Robert Saleh. I hate blaming coaches for things, but man, and I know Nick Sirianni, I don't like Nick Sirianni at all. I think do I think he's a good coach? Yes, but I think he's a cocky son of a bitch, and I think that's why Eagles fans love him. But Saleh, sometimes to me, he acts like a fan, and he just I think that's why the players respect him and stuff, but sometimes I just need him to be a little bit more professional out there. I mean, it's a little embarrassing, and I think it's going to come back to bite them. Now, if they win a Super Bowl, I'll be like, I'll shut up. Or if they go to the playoffs and they have tremendous success, I'll shut up. But I just don't like that. I just don't. And I've said it before, and you can say I'm crazy, and you can say oh, you're negative or whatever, but that's just the reality. I don't think head coaches really should be like that. But maybe I'll look like an idiot in a few weeks. But that's what I want to talk about with the Jets, basically. Excellent win, and it sets them up for the easier part of their schedule to really take the reins and have a really successful season, and they need to end it better than they did last year.